DevilNeverCry.
What is up, everybody? It is me, DevilNeverCry, and we are back with another DMC video, this time going over 5 the hardest trophies and achievements a Devil Hunter can get their hands on throughout the DMC series. Now, most of the time when it comes to these sorts of videos where things are often ranked due to their difficulty, a lot of people tend to go with what's written down and what sounds the hardest. However, personally, many moons ago I took it upon myself to platinum the entire Devil May Cry series, and that includes both versions of the reboot and the HD collection twice. Why I did that, I'm not quite sure, but ultimately I think it boils down to the fact that I enjoy these games so much. But having said that, it means that what I'm going to be going through in this video is not only based off of what people have been saying online, but also my own personal experience. And so with that out of the way, let's begin. Kicking things off with the original Devil May Cry, the genesis point for the entire series, this game has a handful of trophies that people can consider difficult. Things like completing a mission without taking any damage, or even going through the game without using a yellow orb, aka a continue. Both of these trophies ultimately aren't too difficult, considering that if you know what you're doing, you can very easily get through these trophies, and of course, you can simply reload a checkpoint if you die and use a continue, so that invalidates these two trophies being considered the hardest right off of the bat. And so reviewing the entire list, there was only one trophy that stuck out as truly difficult and one that really creeped its way up to the top. And again, this is not only from my own personal experience, but having a look at some of the trophy completion websites out there, this trophy is the least attained throughout the entire list, and that is the I Read You Like a Book trophy. This trophy/achievement simply requires you to 100% the entire enemy file in Devil May Cry. For those of you who don't know what the enemy file is, think of it as Dante's own personal journal that he keeps when traveling throughout Malay Island. Every time Dante witnesses a new enemy, comes into a new encounter with them, he makes a note of them in this file. And as an extension, every time he witnesses them doing something he hasn't seen before, he'll make a note under their enemy file. And so the main difficulty of achieving this trophy stems from the fact that enemies in this game have a wide variety of tactics and moves they can use dependent on what the player character is doing. And in terms of having the enemy file filled out, sometimes it's not enough for Dante to see the enemy use this new strategy or attack. In some instances, you have to go out of your way to make sure the enemy file is filled. As an example, there are enemies here which can critically attack you and put you into a special death animation. This animation and attack only takes place when Dante's at critical health, when the health bar is almost 0. And so the enemy file trophy actually requires you to play in ways that you normally wouldn't. Couple that in with the fact that certain attacks and strategies are only used on harder difficulties such as Dante Must Die. It means that you'll be going through multiple playthroughs to get this file filled out, and it's likely that this will be the last trophy you get in the original Devil May Cry when attempting to get the Platinum Trophy. Is it the hardest trophy in the game? Yeah, I would say so, but at the same time it's also one of the more interesting trophies in the game, as it actually forces you to take a step back, gain a little bit of perspective and kind of realize just how enemies work in these games, as opposed to, I don't know, just spamming Stinger and trying to run your way through. Pressing on, we come to Devil May Cry 2, everybody's favorite sequel. And before we even get started, let's get the jokes out of the way. Haha, yes, the trophy that's the hardest in this game surely has to be the one for completing it because most people fall asleep before they get to the end. Haha, I'm hilarious, I'm a savant when it comes to comedy, yada yada yada, you guys get the gist. We're moving straight past that. I'd contemplated actually omitting DMC2 from this list and maybe substituting it in with the definitive edition of the reboot, but then I ultimately decided that I want to keep this video centered on the main DMC series, and in fact, I might even do a separate video on the reboot because there is a lot of love for that game out there still. Getting straight to the topic at hand, I really had to rack my brain when reviewing this list and thinking of what really challenged me as a player when I was going for the platinums in this game. Two trophies that immediately stuck out to me were getting the S-rank trophies for Lucia and Dante, which simply requires you to just finish a mission with an S-rank, which is actually harder than you think, but fairly manageable and not very time consuming. but I finally settled on the over 9,000 trophy, which is an obvious reference to Dragon Ball. Shout out to all you fans out there. But the trophy simply requires you to get past the 9,000th level of the Bloody Palace. And I say simply because it is quite a straightforward task, but it is quite difficult. If you're going to go through this and do it legitimately, without using Trish and the infinite DT hack to get you through this, it's going to be a very time-consuming and arduous process as you whittle away at the levels. The enemy groupings are semi-random, with the added addendum that you will be facing bosses quite regularly, just like the other Bloody Palaces. But what makes this fairly difficult is that after the 1000th level, which is going to be level 10 roughly if you're going through this in increments of 100, all of the levels are going to be Dante Must Die difficulty, which shortens your margin for error considerably. And yes, of course, as mentioned, you can cheat your way through this quite easily, but if you're attempting to do this legitimately, this trophy is nothing to scoff at. Judgment cutting our way on to the next game. Can you guess what it is? Devil May Cry 3 Special Edition. Again, similar to the original Devil May Cry, this game actually has a handful of trophies that can be considered difficult, but ultimately only one rises to the top. And that, of course, has to be Hellish Honor, which requires you to S-rank all of the missions on any difficulty. And the reason that I chose this difficulty as the hardest is because, unlike some of the other hard trophies, like beating Dante Must Die or completing the Bloody Palace, this is a trophy that you can't cheat your way through. And by that I mean you can't employ the use of cheesy tactics to get an easy win. For example, completing the Bloody Palace seems quite daunting, but you can easily get this trophy by using the Super Spada DT, which not only gives you infinite Devil Trigger, but infinite health regen, which makes you pretty much nigh on unkillable and this trophy a cakewalk. Or for example, finishing Dante Must Die. Seems quite daunting, but the fact that you can use numerous amounts of vital stars and gold orbs simply means that you can brute force your way to that trophy as well. And I know some may argue that Hellish Honor can be easy by playing on easy difficulty. I think some of you are underestimating how hard it is to get an S rank in this game if you don't know what you're doing. You have to basically make sure you're using no items, take little to no damage, complete the mission incredibly fast, find enough orbs, and then also get past the style point threshold, which, again, if you don't know what you're doing or if you attempt to just scrub and mash your way through, getting that S rank is going to be incredibly difficult. And so with DMC 3 down and out, let's move on to Devil May Cry 4 Special Edition, where things really ramp up in terms of difficulty, and honestly, I think this game might have some of the most difficult trophies hands down throughout the entire series. Before we get to what I think is the hardest trophy to achieve, let's go through some of the runners-up, and believe me, there are quite a few here. There is a trophy attached to every boss in this game, which requires you to not only defeat them on Son of Spada difficulty and above, so hard mode and above, but also have a triple S rank on your style meter as you deliver the finishing blow. And so what that requires you to do is to play the entire fight perfectly, taking minimal damage and building your style meter up constantly. And you know, the higher that you get, the faster that it falls, requiring you to play incredibly aggressively up until the point where it climaxes as you deliver the finishing blow as your style meter is maxed out. And these sets of trophies are incredibly hard, but there are a few that are even worse. For example, the Untouchable trophy, which requires you to complete the final stage of the Bloody Palace without taking any damage whatsoever. To put that into context, DMC4's Bloody Palace requires you to tackle 100 waves of grueling enemy and boss encounters, which are also timed, by the way, requiring you to play stylishly and efficiently, only for it to all culminate and climax in a one-on-one battle against Dante himself. And this isn't the chump change Dante that you might have faced in the tutorial or even Devil Hunter mode. This is Dante firing on all cylinders. He has access to all of his weapons and all of his styles, and is somewhere up there close to Dante Must Die difficulty in terms of how hard he is. And so you have to sit through an hour and a half to 2 hours of a grueling bloody palace, only to then go and fight Dante and attempt to do him no damage whatsoever, which is incredibly hard because Dante can easily chip you out from across the arena with ebony and ivory, putting all of your hard effort to waste and likely your controller through your screen. But I ultimately think the trophy that takes the cake for the hardest in DMC4 is Never Say Die, which, as the name kind of implies, you have to go and S-rank the entirety of Dante Must Die mode in DMC4, which, even though DMC4's DMD mode is known throughout the community to be one of the easiest, if not the easiest DMDs to complete, it is no walk in the park to S-rank them all, especially with DMC4's infamous and fabled S-rank orb requirement, which sometimes takes the absolute piss. You see, DMC4's rank requirements are rather peculiar. Sure, mostly it's like the other games in that you need to use no items and take no damage and complete missions fairly fast, but it comes with an orb found requirement which tends to trip a lot of players up. To get an S rank in this category, you have to find over 95% of the orbs in a mission. So that means you have to pick up any orb floating around in the environment, you have to find every single hidden orb cache that is in that mission and is accessible, and you have to destroy every piece of the environment that would give you orbs when destroyed. It's absolutely ludicrous because you can play perfectly throughout an entire mission, and just because you forgot to destroy one chair and pick up that orb that it gives you, it can throw your entire S rank attempt straight into the bin, forcing you to do it all over again. Thankfully, this is something that they dropped for DMC5. And that conveniently and casually brings us onto DevilNeverCry 5 and its hardest trophy, which I think we're all in agreement here with it being worthy of legend. The trophy which requires you to clear every single mission on DevilNeverCry with an S rank on every difficulty excluding Heaven or Hell, which is a joke difficulty because you'll get an S rank just for completing it anyway. I don't really think this trophy needs much explanation. After all, it's quite straightforward. You have to get the highest rank possible on every mission, on every difficulty, and therein lies the difficulty. Even though the ranking in this game has been streamlined compared to the other games where you only actually need to go over a certain style point threshold, a lot of the missions in DevilNeverCry 5 and their style rank system is completely bugged. Or I say bugged, but they're not bugged because let's be honest, if it was, it would have been fixed with the special edition, but it wasn't, which means it works as intended. There are a few missions in DMC5 where your style points just drop off a cliff. You can play your absolute heart out, you could literally throw together your own mini combo mad in a mission and just absolutely decimate, and for whatever reason, just because you're playing on a specific mission, your style points won't reflect how well you've played, which is absolute chaos. Couple that in with Hell and Hell mode, which literally requires you to take no damage to get the S rank on, and it means that you are in for a bit of a rough ride, as those of you who tuned into some of my streams saw, as I kind of flew off the handle. But with that, we come to the end of the 5 hardest trophies and achievements that you can attain throughout the DevilNeverCry series. Let me know down in the comments below if there's anything that you disagreed with and if there are trophies out there you struggled with that I didn't list here. And if you enjoyed today's video, do be sure to leave a like and consider subscribing, as it all helps the channel out. And with all that said and done, it has been me, DevilNeverCry. I'd like to thank all of you for watching, and as always, I'll see you all next video.